Hello, everyone, and welcome to another update of the Hydrogen Global Governance Platform. Before we get started, let's do a quick sound check to make sure that you can all hear and see us. Christina, can you
Yes,
hear
I
me?
can hear you. Am I clear as well? Yeah, perfect.
Yes, you're also audible. Perfect. Got that out of the way, then we can get started. Let's have a look. So we do this sort of webinars on a monthly basis where we provide an overview of sort of the Hydrogen Global Governance Platform. The platform is, in a nutshell, an all singing, all dancing sort of overview, a one-stop shop for all the developments in the hydrogen space that governments put out. And there is a lot of developments happening, as you all know. It's difficult to keep track of that. And as such, we made sure that we captured all those developments in one place on a country, regional, and sort of global overview. So the second part of this presentation, I'll walk you through some of the functionality of the platform, and I'll try to share my screen to see if it's possible to run through some of the examples. Otherwise, we'll just have to work off some of the slides that where we have those examples available as well. But before we get to that, maybe like a brief introduction is on its place, and then Christina will run through some of the monthly updates of some of the governments and their plans regarding the hydrogen roadmap. So the hydrogen standard, myself, an introduction would be okay. Johan Wiebe, I'm the executive director and the founder of the hydrogen standard, and it's first and foremost a platform for information regarding all developments sort of in the hydrogen space. With me here today is Christina Abouchar, our head of research. She will walk you through the sort of update of the month for on the hydrogen global governance. But the hydrogen standard itself has sort of three pillars. We focus on news and market insight, industry advocacy, and market research. Taking the latter first, so that the market research is why we're here today with the hydrogen global governance. Industry advocacy is sort of like where we have a magazine available and cooperate with a lot of different events. It's an opportunity for sort of businesses in the hydrogen space to tell their story, showcase their technological solution, and be part of the conversation, and we can help you sort of push and increase your exposure. If there's interest in that, please get in touch with us. We'd be happy to have that conversation ongoing. And then the market news and insights is mainly focused sort of on our monitors, the Global Hydrogen Monitor and the China Hydrogen Monitor, which focuses on a monthly basis on developments in those regions. So with the housekeeping then, this webinar will be hopefully short and sweet, 30 minutes max, and we can get access to the slides afterwards and the presentation. I think that's it for the first part from my side, and I'm happy to hand over to Christina now.
Hello, everyone. I'm Christina. As Johan said, today we're back with our fifth webinar. As usual, we will be covering the latest news on the hydrogen scene, and then we will go through a quick overview of our online interactive platform with some updates we're very excited to reveal. So since our last webinar in March, we're starting to see a real ripple effect from the supportive policies adopted in the US and the EU. So accordingly, Canada, who has already committed to helping its allies in Europe through this transition, is sending a strong signal in support of hydrogen through its budget for the year 2023. And we will look into this in more details during our news update. But before getting into our deep dive segments, which will cover Canada and the UK, a quick roundup of the latest news from around the world. Starting in Europe, Denmark and Germany are planning to build a land-based hydrogen pipeline between them to be operational by 2028. The EU launches a flagship hydrogen truck project, H2 Accelerate Trucks, with 150 hydrogen-powered heavy-duty test vehicles tested on routes connecting Scandinavia to Italy. The UK government follows with a £200 million investigation into hydrogen and electric trucks, aiming for zero-emission heavy goods vehicle by 2040. Brussels is working on a subsidy scheme in the form of green premiums to bring down the prices of hydrogen for buyers. The European Investment Bank pledged to give Namibia a loan of up to 500 million euros to finance renewable hydrogen and energy investments. In Africa, Algeria is officializing its ambitions as it publishes its first national strategy for the development of hydrogen. And on the other side of the world, in China, the first west-to-east hydrogen transmission pipeline has been included in the country's oil and gas network construction plan. As mentioned earlier, we're starting to witness a real race on the policy-making side. Our two features this month are about the UK and Canada and their different approaches. So for a little bit of an international context, the global energy security crisis is inciting governments worldwide to take decisive action in reducing energy dependency on Russia. As a result, European and US moves to promote low-carbon hydrogen have grabbed headlines in recent months. The US has increased its ambitions. It aims to produce 10 million metric tons of clean hydrogen by 2030, 20 by 2040, and 50 by 2050. And between them, the Inflation Reduction Act and the Infrastructure Investments and Jobs Act provides around $420 billion to promote the clean hydrogen industry. The magnitude of the IRA alone is already attracting capital and talent and raw material from around the world to the US. So as a result, the EU released new renewable energy directives, doubling its hydrogen production to 20 million metric tons by 2030. It also provided 30 billion euros in funding for hydrogen from various initiatives, in addition to the European Commission, which has outlined a plan to offer fixed premiums per kilo of hydrogen backed by 800 million euros from its innovation fund. So in response to these strong policy actions on both sides, the UK has also set very ambitious targets of installing 10 gigawatts of low-carbon hydrogen production capacity by 2030, half of which is expected to be completely green, which is equivalent to 100 times the volume of current green hydrogen production in the UK. Despite these very strong targets, the UK still has very limited national planning guidance specific to green hydrogen, a very limited framework to provide guidance for local planning authorities, national governments, and key industry stakeholders. As a direct result of this, and the delays in passing a supportive energy bill, some local investors have already made the decision to prioritize projects outside the UK. And this threatens the realization of a thriving low-carbon hydrogen economy, which is key to the UK's energy security and net zero ambitions. This is why we've gathered insights from a key industry-led report by the Hydrogen Champion that aims to act as a comprehensive guide for green hydrogen policymakers and developers to actually go from conception to realization. These suggestions include fostering collaboration and shared accountability between industry and governments to promote the realization of targets to 2030, overcoming barriers to deliver the first carbon capture-enabled and electrolytic hydrogen production projects at scale, creating an integrated energy infrastructure to deliver the optimal future energy system progressively, providing a clear vision for scale-up to boost investors' confidence, and stimulating demand in blending, heating, and transport. Another key stakeholder is industry and the private sector that should also take active part in supporting the planning effort. Key points are identifying UK strength, delivering more UK content, and formulating a more comprehensive supply chain strategy. Supporting government and academia in ensuring that near and long-term skill needs are met within the supply chain. Improving effectiveness of formal consultations using industry data and experience from other markets, evaluating the economic opportunity of hydrogen, and helping resolve problems and gaps in resources. Now we'll move on to our next deep dive. On the other side of the Atlantic, Canada is also stepping up against the backdrop of the US IRA. Canada is a long-standing exporter of energy. As the globe continues to transition towards low carbon and net zero sources of energy, being at the forefront of new solutions such as clean hydrogen is crucial for the Canadian economy. Accordingly, the budget for 2023 provides much anticipated details around the Clean Hydrogen Investment Tax Credit, the ITC, which was announced last fall in the last economic statement this fall in 2022. So the ITC supports eligible projects in 3 tiers, ranging between 15 and 40% based on the carbon intensity of the hydrogen projects. The Canadian government expects to spend 5.6 billion Canadian dollars over 5 years, starting 2023-2024, and an additional 12.1 billion Canadian dollars in the next 5 years. The tax credit will also be available for ammonia production, but only if it's associated with clean hydrogen production and extended to equipment needed to convert hydrogen into ammonia for transportation. These investments will be underpinned by Canada's pollution pricing systems and large emitter credit markets, reinforced by Budget 23, with tools such as Contract for Difference. This framework is meant to boost investments and leverage the private sector's expertise to incentivize the market to capitalize on local resources and help Canada become a leader in the clean energy transition. Canada has rich feedstock reserves, a skilled energy labor force, and strategic energy infrastructure assets that position it to become a top global producer of clean hydrogen. The landscape's diversity means Canada has a unique production mix to meet the growing demand of hydrogen. Different territories will tend to present various resources and economic factors, as indicated on the map on the right-hand side. For example, the Northwest Territories and Nova Scotia have mixed feedstock hydrogen production potential. Quebec, Newfoundland, Manitoba have hydro-renewable hydrogen production potential. Alberta has fossil fuel hydrogen production potential. New Brunswick has nuclear and mixed feedstock. And British Columbia has fossil fuel and hydro-renewable hydrogen production. So the resources are mixed. Now, the only concern for Canada remains is whether existing hydrogen technology will work in a northern climate the same as in the southern climate, because infrastructure and technology are traditionally cheaper to develop in southern provinces. And this is where I wrap up our news segment for today. Now we will get into some specific from the report itself, starting with an overview of how the platform was constructed. Throughout this next segment, we will provide an introduction of some of the key themes that we work with and we believe will define the future of the hydrogen industry. I will give a quick overview of our methodology, and then I'll leave the floor to Johan to go through the functionalities of the platform. So this right here is just an overview of how the platform is built. We have country profiles that are pulled together to build regional profiles, and then the regional profiles are pulled together to create a global landscape and give a more global image of the industry today. In terms of ideology, we strongly believe in the power of policies and national and governmental institutions that they can have a considerable impact on the development of industries in general and specifically the energy industry and hydrogen. So we strongly believe that policies and governmental development will provide more visibility on the development of the private sector and the future of the hydrogen industry and the development of a hydrogen economy. This is my part for now, so I leave the stage to Johan to take you through key sections of the platform and more insights on what you can expect to find on there. Thank you for your time, Johan.
Thank you, Christina. That was a comprehensive update. Yes, so as promised, we'll have a go over the platform and a short, brief demonstration of the functionality. I'll start by sharing my screen. Let's see if this works. Christina, can you maybe confirm if you can see what I'm seeing?
Yes, we can see it. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, okay. So to give a little bit of a brief overview of the platform and its functionality, it's always better to see it in action as opposed to just talking about it abstract, sort of in slides as such. The general gist of the platform itself is to build sort of a dashboard with functionality that will migrate or redirect you to specific elements that you're interested in. Now, note this is sort of like a demo platform, which is under construction. The real platform will be available if you log in for our clients, and this is just for illustrative purposes. So the general setup is sort of to start with the global overview and with sort of various pages that illustrate what the developments are in terms of various variables. So for example, we look at funding commitments and classification. We sort of draw that out in a heat map and also over a specific time horizon, starting with 2025, 2030, and sort of the longer term 2050 commitments. Funding commitments per region, then you can see sort of how that stacks up against each other. We've got some electrolyzer capacity data, cumulative capacity rollout, etc. So on a global level, this is sort of like one of the elements that is available. Another one, for example, that we have is the economic landscape. So what are the economic benefits of a hydrogen industry in your country, and particularly from a policy perspective, economic contribution, the number of jobs that are created. Obviously, this is all hypothetical, but sort of like at least targets and ambitions that various countries put out. And the neat thing about this sort of like platform is that you have like toggle functionality where you can go between the various regions. Here, for example, colors and project density for the hydrogen space of the different regions, green being obviously green, and then the various other colors represent different technologies that are expected to emerge over the horizon. A nice another heat map in terms of the project density in colors. Sort of the colors don't necessarily, yes they do, brown represents sort of the color that we use for the hydrogen classifications as well, broken down to the various countries, R&D initiatives, etc. So there's a lot of data just on sort of the economic benefits, which is then part of the global overview. Then we obviously can delve more into the specific details, and we've just sort of made the Europe and a little bit on North America available, but obviously in the final version, on the real version, you have all the specific details on these regions as well, plus the underlying countries. So for example, we look at Europe, you'll be able to sort of like delve into sort of like the regional specifics. This is updated continuously. And sort of the setup is similar across the various regions. So we look at some funding commitments, we look at some milestone targets between 2030 and 2050, and also a little bit on sort of the cost of the hydrogen. We also have various elements on the hydrogen strategies for Europe, for example, the hydrogen, the new hydrogen bank, and sort of other elements that are on a European level rolled out, available on the platform. Delving further into the detail, let's have a look at the UK, for example. We obviously, since we have like a bottom-up approach, we start by looking at the individual specifications of the of each country. And by the way, always you can revert back to the dashboard that provides you an overview where you can migrate through. But individual countries and what is happening on a various terms, you can toggle between 2024, 2030, and 2050. So they're indicated always on sort of the same sort of classifications, electrolysis capacity, cumulative investment, policy support, etc., between each country. Then also for the UK, then there are some specifics on sort of like government recommendation and industry recommendations that we managed to accumulate over time. One more example then, for example, is the USA. A lot obviously happening there in regards to IRA and how that sort of like pans out in the different sort of, if you would qualify it in the different short, medium, and sort of long-term commitments of the USA sort of visible here. Visual mapping of projects and developments, obviously the various hydrogen clusters, hydrogen hubs, is of course very relevant in the industry. We're currently developing this in a bit more a dynamic fashion as well, where you actually will be able to interactively play around with the individual hubs, what they represent and which states they cross over to. But that sort of functionality is also available sort of like sort of sub-country level, state level almost, particularly for the bigger countries that have that available. So I think that's sort of like the part that we wanted to share with you today. Let's see if we can get the presentation up and running again. The rest of the slides will illustrate some screenshots of what has just been demoed, and they will be available obviously after the demonstration. I think the best way forward usually is for a demo to be arranged between yourself and us to see if there's interest, and to have any questions that you might have. We might be able to answer them and see the functionality, the level of detail that could help you in sort of making your decisions. And some attributes that come with the platform are obviously full insights in all the global governance developments, regional breakdown and summary of the hydrogen plans, country-specific details, obviously, because there's constantly updates taking place, and we're constantly updating those as well. Obviously, those updates will be summarized on a monthly basis, sort of like what we did here prior, sort of like what Christina has done, and that will be available in the platform as well. So you'll have access to that continuously. Easy accessible slide deck, and always available online. So I guess that sort of sums it up for us today. We can leave the questions for now as it is, and we'd be very happy to answer those individually with those that are interested to have a more in-depth conversation about the functionality of it. So with that said, this will be made available afterwards on the website, the recording and the presentation. And we thank you very much for your time. And we look forward to you again in the next update.
Great. Thank you.